The Australian government is raising the bar for international students and some workers to get a visa as it seeks to overhaul what it says is Australia's broken temporary migration program. Australia will be implementing new stringent visa rules for international students and low-skilled workers in an effort to reduce its migrant intake by half over the next 2 years. The Australian Home Affairs Minister unveiled the reforms, emphasizing the need to overhaul a perceived broken migration system. And the government there is emphasizing that their strategy goes beyond mere numerical adjustments, focusing on shaping Australia's future through what they call a comprehensive migration experience. But education visa-related commitments under the India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement will not be affected by Australia's new migration strategy that was just announced on the 11th of December. This is what our sources have indicated. And the affirmation came soon after Canberra announced the new policy for guiding the post-COVID waves of migration to Australia, as sources expressed confidence that Indian students will continue to grow in numbers in Australian educational institutions. But for further clarity on Australia's new migration strategy, joining us live, Editor-in-Chief, The Australia Today, Jay Bhardwaj. Thank you so much, Jay, for joining us on NDTV. Jay, can you clarify whether this means that Indian graduates will now continue to be eligible to stay on a temporary graduate visa for 2 years for a bachelor degree, 3 years for a completion of a master's degree, and 4 years for a completion of a PhD?
That's correct, Parmeshwar. There is no change per se on those policies. However, the new migration policy directs to weed out the which government says non-genuine students who just come to Australia in guise of a student, but they end up in workplace, the work market here, and the difficulties for Australian government to control it is immense. However, now they have made it sure they have raised the bar for English tests for the first to the starters. So now, as I understand, 7 band will be must for a IELTS test for international students who want to come to Australia. If they don't have those kind of qualifications, then they have to do that 6 months of English learning, English as second language learning in Australia with a payment. So the fees for education applications have also been raised. The amount which a student applicant should have in their bank accounts in terms of spendings in Australia has also been raised. So these all measures have been designed to weed out non-genuine students. That's what government is trying to say. However, there are a number of places which will benefit Indian students.
Right.
And I can say that almost 70% of Indian students who come to Australia, they come in higher education sector. And Australia has a focused emphasis on these higher education students. So India is kind of going to benefit rather than be in any kind of deficit because of these new changes.
Right, Jay. So just picking up on what you mentioned, the new policies will require international students to achieve higher scores on English proficiency tests, with increased scrutiny on second visa applications to extend their stays is what we're hearing. Also, you mentioned the fees has been raised. You feel this is likely to discourage Indian students, or it's not a colossal concern?
See, most genuine students their parents arrange fees through banks or otherwise. The only system, what has happened in last few years, we have also reported on that, is there have been sham marriage contracts just to move to Australia or a country like Australia, maybe Canada or UK. So what they do is, one of the dependent is unqualified. They might be working in menial jobs in India. They kind of do a sham marriage with a girl, or the girl comes as a student to Australia, and that person comes on a dependent visa. That person ends up doing full-time job in whatever profession, as a plumber, as a technician, as a truck driver or taxi driver. So government want to curb all those multiple ways through which migration was happening through student visa. So they are very concerned about these because after COVID, rents have increased in Australia. Australian population has been crying that last year almost 410,000 migrants came to India,
Yes.
be that a skilled migrant or international student. And let me tell you, 40% of that was from India. So it's a large number which came to India. There was too many concerns on these numbers. Now government has scrutinized and told that we are open for business. However, it has to be genuine. And another visa which they have announced, Indian technicians are gonna be like benefiting on high numbers. This is a specialized visa which probably will be allotted within 2 weeks' time and is for highly skilled workers.
Right.
Indian technicians in terms of IT, green energy, environment, they will benefit. I think the lion's share will be of Indian technicians on this visa.
Well, we'll of course wait for clarity on the rules regarding that. But in terms of public sentiment, Jay, in fact, a survey conducted for the Sydney Morning Herald actually revealed that 62% of Australian voters believe that the country's migration intake is actually too high. But while there will be no caps on or targets for international student numbers, Australia is actually saying that steps will be taken to ensure that students don't attempt to remain in Australia for a prolonged period of time. Jay, what does this mean for Indian students who are looking to call Australia home eventually? And should students in Australia look at applying elsewhere for jobs after they eventually finish their studies there?
See, any student who tells on his visa application that they want to come to study Australia, to settle in Australia, they will not be granted an Australian visa. So that's the primary rule, that you come on a student visa to study, and as per your visa condition, you can stay for 2 more years to study, work, and then you can go back to your country or wherever you find a job. That's the primary condition for a student visa. If you want to come to Australia as a migrant on a skilled visa, then after education, you can find job. If you get job, please do that. If you find job in anywhere in the world, do your job there and then apply for a skilled visa. That's what government wants. Student visa cannot be and should not be a pathway for permanent residency in Australia.
Got
in
it.
as many
It's not a
words,
backdoor entry.
there is no backdoor entry at all. That's the door, a window, whatever you want to call it, they want to close. If you want to migrate to India, Australia, then there are pathways. Please apply through that. We are open for business. We welcome highly skilled persons who can contribute to Australian economy. That's what government says. However, if you are a student, we have best of the universities here. Please come study and then find jobs wherever you can.
Right, that brings me to another concern.
We make you job ready.
Right, it brings me to another concern, which is the influx of foreign workers and students. But that's actually mounting pressure on the Australian rental market, I'm told, which is also leading to a rise in homelessness. Which brings me to Australia's housing crisis. In fact, last week, Jay, the Australian government had announced plans to significantly increase fees on foreign buyers of existing homes left vacant. Tell us more about the Australia housing crisis.
See, it's more like because of COVID, there is less number of houses which have been built. It has nothing to do with international students. However, it has something to do with wealthy foreigners who have bought houses in Australian market, because the prices go up every year in Australia in terms of market housing. It is one of the most fundamental way of putting your money and doubling it within 5 years time. So a lot of Asian people have invested in Australia. This has been going on for last 3 years or 4 years. Government is tightening the rules to invest in Australia. If there is a house, you can't leave it vacant. That is all together combined, a very local issue. It has very less to do with the immigrants or international students.
Right.
However, international students are finding it very hard to find a house. So they are living kind of in shared accommodations or something like that, which government doesn't like at the moment.
Got it.
And there is no cap on international students. But Australian government next year need to make sure that it comes back. So the politics also plays a role. Local politics plays a role when governments take decisions.
Right, as we wrap, Jay, so you believe that these new reforms are expected to open a sort of new pathway for semi-skilled workers, and that's likely to benefit Indian nationals?
I definitely think that the highly skilled Indian nationals will benefit through this new migration change in Australia. International students, I don't think they'll be worse off because of this. Genuine students will be coming. I mean, last year, almost 100,000 Indian international students landed up in Sydney, Melbourne, or Perth. However, this year the number will be less because government is tightening their ropes around the necks of vocational college, where students don't go to attend the school or college where they are going, and they end up driving taxis. Government doesn't want that. So obviously, they are investing almost $19 million to have what we used to call in India a flying squad. So those flying squads will be there to check those colleges in their teaching hours, whether the students are attending or not. If they are not, then they'll be sent back home. That is one important thing. This year alone, government is going to crack down on students, and if you are not found to be attending your college, third strike, you will be sent home. That's what government is saying.
Well, that's a warning for the students watching as well. But Australia's new migration strategy comes with the government flagging that overseas migration has peaked and is set to fall in the next 12 months. The government there claims that these new policies will attract more of the workers Australia needs and help reduce the risk of exploitation for those who live, work and study in the country. Thank you so much, Jay Bharadwaj, for joining us on NDTV.